And I have the honor of interviewing Don Graves, United States Marine Corps from World War II. And Don, thanks for having me today.
You're welcome. Good to be here, both of us.
Yes. Now, Don, can you give me your full name, please?
Sure. My name is Donald G. Graves.
And your branch of service, please.
United States Marine Corps.
And what division were you?
I was in the 5th Division. I was also, my first tour, I was in a 2nd Anti-Tank Battalion. We all broke up, the Raiders and all the special groups broke up. We formed the 5th Marine Division.
Okay. And what was your ultimate rank? Your rank?
I'm corporal now. Yeah.
Okay. And can you give me the year, the day, and the month that you were born?
May 3rd, 1925.
Okay. And did you have any family members that served in World War I?
My dad was in the Marine Corps in the First World War.
And did he have any issues as far as gas or anything else like that?
They got the swine flu at PI, at the boot camp there. And they would not let them board ships, so he didn't see a thing. They just did what they could in the States. It was a shame. They lost a lot of men with that flu.
And what did your dad do for a living?
He was a roofing contractor.
Okay.
Yep.
Besides yourself, did you have any other family members serve in World War II?
My brother served in the Navy the last year of the war. We were 18 months apart. And I can't speak for the two Graves cousins. I haven't seen them. You know, we didn't live close.
And what did you do for fun growing up in Detroit? What did you do for fun? What did you do for fun? Like
for fun. Oh, we went to the parks, we went skating, we went hunting, we went fishing. We just kept busy doing everything. Baseball. Yes.
And did you actually move from Detroit at what point in time, or did you spend your youth in Detroit area?
I came back from the war, and I spent 2 years, got married, and it was a very hot night in Detroit, but we didn't have air conditioning. I said to my wife, I said, "Do you think you'd like California?" I miss California, because that's why I went to the boot camp station. And she said, "I wouldn't mind." I got up in the morning and sold everything we had for a check for $200. Now, that was a lot of money then. And we took off to see a Marine buddy. I stayed there 32 years and raised 4 kids. And God got a hold of me and put me in the ministry for 29 years.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, growing up in the 1930s and the like, some of the things, did you live in a house, a farmhouse, a ranch house? What?
During the Depression, I go back in 31, the heavy Depression hit. Roosevelt came in, he got the big crash settled. Now he's got the Depression to be faced with. We went through that Depression. We know what what it is when it's scarce, and we learned to eat everything. I still love my liver and onions. I love them. Oh boy, we ate everything we possibly could, and we were healthy. We lived on the lake, my grandma's cottage, just wooden frame cottage, wallpaper over the drywall, or the paneling. I fished and hunted there all my young life there. Then everything eased up. People were going back to work. We moved back to Detroit, 50 miles away. Went to school there. And then Pearl Harbor hit.
Let me just go back to the Great Depression.
Sure.
Now, in your house, did you have outdoor plumbing, or did you have, go ahead.
We had all outdoor plumbing until we came back to Detroit. We had a bathtub and a toilet bowl. And that was it. No shower, not even portables in those days. So that's what we did. And 4 kids fought to get in there. My mother was going wild. 2 boys and 2 girls fighting.
What was now with heating, did you use wood or did you use coal for your heating?
I'm sorry?
For your heating, what did you use for that? Coal or?
Oh, it was wood.
Wood.
Well, you could buy packages of coal, but gosh, it was expensive, you know. My grandma and grandpa had a small farm, 80 acres. They struggled through the Depression. Farmers did, and especially the small farmers. But we got all the wood we wanted. And my brother and I had the job of making sure that wood was behind the stove and in the stove. There was a price to pay.
Now, did you have an ice box?
We had an ice box, and I had to keep the pan out, empty the water, put it back. If water got on the floor, I paid a price. My dad pulled no punches.
Yeah. And your mother was a housewife, yes?
Huh?
Your mother was a housewife.
My mother was a homemaker and a housewife.
Okay.
She was.
Now, when you went to school, was it a one-room schoolhouse or was it pretty good?
Yes, and when we lived on the lake, it was a brick house with 1 room, outdoor plumbing.
Now, when you went to school, though, in elementary school, was it a one-room schoolhouse?
That's downtown Detroit.
What?
That was, that was a big school. Jefferson. And I went there until I heard Roosevelt's speech.
Well, 1 second before we get to that. What did you do? Did you have any summer or jobs that you did, odd jobs growing up?
I did everything. Anything that would bring in coins. You know, I was sitting on the porch. This started it. I must have been 11 years old. I don't think I was quite 12. And my brother was just a young, little tot. And I had 2 buddies. Now, their dads worked on the city, and they always had a check. The rest were out of work. So they came by and said, "Come on down, we're going to see a movie." I said, "I haven't got any money. How much?" He said, "It's only a dime on weekend, quarter, midnights, or night evenings." And I said, "I don't have a dime." "Well, go ask your mother." "I don't think she's got it." So I went in to my mother, and I said, "Ma, I have to ask you something." Johnny is standing around and said, "We went to war, too, together and came home. And they're out there waiting for me, and I need a dime to go to the movie." She said, "You want a dime?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." "Go earn it. I don't have it." That sparked something. I'm going to go earn it. And I've been working ever since that day. I have worked all my life. I'm still working, and I'll be 100 years old in about 6 weeks.
Now, did you guys have a family car, or did you get around on a bike or walk?
Well, we had buses, streetcars. 6 cents you could drive all over the city of Detroit. If you wanted to go off into an area there, you paid 3 cents for a transfer. That was a lot of money.
Now, talking about sports, did you have any sports heroes from the various teams in the Detroit area, like the Detroit Tigers, like Hank Greenberg?
Blocks away was the Tiger Stadium. We had a glove. Well, now we're getting out of the Depression. But we would go down by the stadium. We couldn't afford to go in. We'd have a baseball bat. We'd have a softball. We'd each have a glove. And we'd stand out there, and Hank Greenberg would get up. Pow! In fact, the people used to say, "Hey, Hank, what's that on your bat?" And some would say, "It's a fly." Over comes the ball, we fight for it. Go in where they come out and beg them and ask them to sign the ball, and they'd sign it.
Yeah.
Those balls, I don't know what happened. They're worth a lot of money. Schoolboy roll.
Oh, there you go.
The great.
How about the mechanical man?
Charlie Gehringer, oh my gosh, number 7. He was a great ball player, but a sore loser. He had a bad attitude. All those guys fought in the war. They were good men.
Now, when the New York Yankees came to town, again, you said you couldn't afford to go to the game, but did you ever encounter Gehrig or Babe Ruth or anything else like that?
You know, Babe Ruth was, he was just about out he'd be playing the Tigers, and we would just hope we could get him, but we could never. He snuck out of different places. We couldn't get him, but the Babe was good, but Lou fixed him.
Yeah, that's right. How about the Detroit Lions football team at that time?
I was never a football star. I got a small hand. I could not pass a ball. I couldn't do it.
Now-
I tried submarine, and they said, you can't do that.
So you played baseball then, obviously. Was baseball your sport that you played?
I played a lot of softball. Everywhere we could. In the alleys where the back of the garages were, I think we busted out of the whole block 6 windows. And the guys, they had them replace the window, put a screen mesh over it. And there were 2 homes gone, there were lots. We played in there. And people would bring their folding chairs and bring a sandwich and watch us play. It was something.
So getting back to the Great Depression, would it be safe to say that you guys felt poor like everybody else, but everybody was in that same spot to a certain extent?
Spot.
Yeah.
It was really, but we helped one another. Johnny, my one buddy, he went in the Navy. His dad he was a mechanic on the streetcars and that. He made money. I mean, he worked. And Johnny always said, here, take it. We'll go to him. He always shared. If we wanted candy, he always bought something. We always share it. The 3 of us, they called us the neighborhood 3 Musketeers. We went off to war, we made it, came back, and we all got married, and that was the end of it.
Now, we're going to get to December 7th. So when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, do you remember where you were?
Yes.
And what was your reaction?
Yes. I think technically speaking, the 7th was when we were hit. But we haven't declared war till the 8th, the next day on a Sunday. So I'll tell you what happened. We heard that we were hit, we were attacked. Well, being kids, the parents took it more to heart than we did. Well, we'll whip them in 2 or 3 days. We can kick them. I mean, we just thought we were done. On the 8th, one day after, it was 8 below zero in Detroit. And we had an old car in the front of the house. We hooked up a radio to an old 4-car, and we were listening to the big bands. Tommy Dorsey and Jimmy Dorsey. We love the big bands. I wish we could get them back. They don't have a place to put them. Well, anyway, we're sitting, the 3 of us, and we got a blanket around us, cap, jacket, and we're listening. Yeah. Then all of a sudden, ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this broadcast. The President of the United States will address the nation. We said, what's he going to say? Well, we're at war, my one buddy says. Well, listen. And on comes Roosevelt. Now, this is what he said. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date that will live in infamy. United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked upon by the naval and armed forces of the Empire of Japan. I interpret the will of Congress and of the people. We shall gain triumphant victory, so help us God. I said, tomorrow morning, I'm not going to school. I'm going down to the federal building. I'm going to join up. You can't. You got to be 17. I said, I've only got 6 months to go. Well, he says, we got to wait till we're 17, too. I said, well, I'm going down, get the paper. I'm not going to mess around. So I got up on the one that had 3 siblings, 2 girls and 1 boy. I said, don't tell Ma. They didn't. And I got up, went downtown, ran half the way and walked half the way, got in the building, got up on the 4th floor, and a gunny sergeant was standing in the doorway. He said, young man, what can I do for you? I said, I want to sign up. I was hoping he'd let me. I said, man, the first one, I'm not going through this again. You're going back to school. Throw that away. I got in the dining room and tucked it under papers in a buffet drawer. 7 months later, 7 months later, it's my birthday. And we're having a small party. I went in and got the paper, brought it to my dad. And I didn't have a good father. He was on the go all the time, heavy drinking, was mean. I didn't have a good father. It was a shame. My dad had 4 children that wanted to love him, and he wouldn't let them. That's a shame. I said, Dad, sign this paper. He said, what is it? I said, I'm going to the Marine Corps. Give me a pen. I gave him a pen. He signed it. He said, Vera, come here. That's my mother's name. She says, what? The boy's going in the Marine Corps. No, he's not. Yeah, well, he says he is. Why can't he go in? She said, he belongs back in school. Vera, listen to me. The boy walks out of school. He doesn't go back. He's doing odd jobs. He'll probably turn out to be a bum, sign the doggone paper. She said, give me the pen. She signed it. I ran back down to the station, got it, Sergeant. He said, go give me. He said, see that door? I said, yes, sir. He said, you're going in that door. And that doctor is going to go over you from the top of your head to the tip of your toes, and you ain't going to forget it. Now, I still remember it. But I came out, he said, how did you do? I said, I passed, look at here. He said, good, go home. In 2 weeks, I'll give your mother and father a call. They'll bring you to the train station. We'll have a brief ceremony. We'll go to San Diego. That was the Corps.
Wow.
After we got in boot camp, we always say, what were we thinking? What did we do?
And you took the train across from Detroit?
Oh, train, 4 days. Oh, hot August. It was a shame, but it was funny. The conductor came in the car, and he looked around like this. We had our shirts off. We threw cups of water and threw it in the fan. There were no air conditioning. And we had the water all over the place. And he looked at it, and he went like this. Oh, gee. And out he went and never came back. Not a thing he could have done about it.
No.
But you know something? We were the greatest generation.
That's yours. Yep.
I'm going to Washington. Gary Sinise has sent for me. And we're going to have a 3-day deal. That's the coming holiday. And I'm hoping that speech I gave of Roosevelt, I want to give it in the Roosevelt room. I hope I can do it. He sent me a birthday greeting last year. I said, wait a minute, Donald Trump doesn't know me. How did I get this? My friend, the big bear, the general, was his Secretary of Defense. And he must have told him all about it because he sent me a beautiful letter. I think it might be there, I don't know.
Okay.
So that's my story about entering the Marine Corps.
And did you go to MCRD or did you go to Camp Pendleton? Did you go to Camp Pendleton?
My first, but now we were overseas for my first.
What I'm saying is when you went from Detroit to San Diego,
yes.
Did you go to MCRD?
From Michigan over, you went to San Diego.
But did you go to Camp Pendleton or did you go to MCRD?
I went to Tank Camp 1 at San Diego, then Tank Camp 1, and then into the big camp, Pendleton.
Okay.
It was a progressive thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about boot camp. Any unusual stories at all?
Never forget it.
Okay.
The first morning after chow, he called us out. We formed up. He said, you teenage snuts, I got to take you down to the beach and show you something. Turn left, if you know what that means. Forward, we got down there, he says, at rest. You see those transports over there along the docks? See, we were on the boondocks. I mean, they had tents up all over. Kids were coming in. And that parade ground has Big Addition on it. I was there last year. I'm going again. Yeah, a very, very close friend of mine is going to graduate there. Yeah, and they've added to that. But can you imagine? Kids were signing up. And you know, the reason I'm telling you this, my first trip to Hawaii, Pearl Harbor, we went to the Arizona. And I flew it a slow salute. You know what come across my mind? There is your greatest generation, right? That's what we did. We walked out of school, we loved our country, we loved our flag, we loved our national anthem, we loved everything about America, and we weren't going to let anybody take our families away from us. And that's the God's truth. Yeah.
So in basic training, tell me a little bit about baptism under fire, where you're crawling under machine gun fire. Tell me about that.
My baptism under fire, the second trip over, was Iwo Jima.
Well, let's hold that. I want to find out a bit more about basic training. You spent time on San Clemente Island getting ready.
San Clemente. We took that, you know, it's like a little volcano. It's a hill. I can't remember it now, but we took that. We invaded San Clemente, simulating that it's Mount Suribachi. And that's as close as we knew about it. Now, our battalion commander was Jimmy Roosevelt.
Really?
He had the colonel. He was a raider with Carlson, and they broke up. We had the raiders. We had the paratroopers, a special outfit. So that we had crack troops that had experience overseas training. So I don't want to get off track. Where was I going?
Well, we just talked about San Clemente Island, and that prepared you.
We went in by wave, simulating a battle. Now there's one other place that we invaded, Oahu. They could have taken Hawaii. There was nothing to protect it. Well, we hit it. And we had Marines dressed in their bikinis. They're supposed to be Japanese. The goofiest sort of guys you've ever seen. we said, "You're under arrest," and we break down laughing. Up on the highway were about 5 or 6 black limousines. Who do you think was there? The old man, Roosevelt.
Really?
Jamie got up there with him, I guess, because after that we never saw him. He called for him and he went back to state. We never saw him again.
So you saw FDR one time then?
Oh, yeah. He got into something. Yeah. But he was a good man. 6'1", long lace, and look at little me, carrying a flamethrower, 72 pounds. My gosh.
So now tell me how you were designated to become a flamethrower. Was that what they told you to do?
Yeah, that's interesting. We formed the 5th Division, and we were all assigned to what we were going to do. My skipper, I was heading for the slop chute, and he was coming behind me. "Graves, hold up." I said, "Yes, sir." Loved the guy, and he was all Marine. He hold up, Graves. I said, "Yes, sir." "Congratulations. I just made you the other day our flamethrower." I said, "Skipper, I'm only look at me for crying out loud." He said, "You'll grow. You'll get a little heavy. And besides, they won't be able to see too much of you." And you know something? I'm telling you the truth. I'm the only one that came back in my battalion.
That's right. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about flamethrowing. It's a 72. You were carrying 72 pounds.
They're 72 pounds full.
So tell me a little bit about operating a flamethrower.
Right. I'll tell you the operation of a portable flamethrower. Now that long chute you see with fire, that's a tank. That's jelly. It hits and sticks and burns. We didn't know. We used fuel because we were shooting from here to that wall over there, and then they come out. If they're on fire, we kill them. If they had their hands up, we arrested them. But we moved along ahead of the line, and they would come running at us. We'd kill them. I'd hit them with fire. It's a deadly, inhumane thing, but it ended the war. It helped end the war. It did a good job, and they took it away from us, and now it's considered chemical warfare. Not allowed.
So discuss with me the basic operation. Yeah, the operation of it.
5 gallons of 2.5, a settling tank in the middle, a hose to the gun. This released the fuel once you crack. You remember our cap guns? That's what it was. Sparks. And I could throw it from that table.
Oh, great.
To that table. That would be very effective right there. I wouldn't want to go any further.
Now, you yourself, as you're carrying this on your back, you're susceptible to enemy fire because
Yes.
all it takes is...
You know, when I gave up the flamethrower, we were heading to the north. Things were different then. They would come out at nighttime, bonsai charges. We killed 22,000 Japanese soldiers on that island. They got 7,000 of them, but they wounded 20,000 of us. Well,
So let's get back to, now, I want to talk about that a little bit further. So you're deployed from Hawaii, and you're heading out across the Pacific, and you don't know where you're going, and they don't tell you...
Nobody ever heard that. Roosevelt made it very clear. This is not to be mentioned. And I can understand why. We didn't know much about the island, but it was a great operation. 520 Navy ships with guns were out in the bay, hammering that island. Our planes they blew it all apart. It'll be beautiful when you see it. You won't believe it. Grain, grass, shrubbery. You just can't understand how it grew back.
So now, it was what, a day and a half out from Iwo Jima, and they finally told you that's where you're going.
Yes, a day and a half out, they came up with models on tables, and this is Iwo Jima, and told us exactly where we would hit on the beach. My battalion was to take Mount Suribachi. We hit Green Beach 1. It's a curve in there by the mountain. You'll see our memorial when you go up on the mountain. The Seabees did that for us. That's my battalion. There won't be any flag, though.
Now, when you departed your landing craft, according to what I've read, and you hit the water and then the beach, tell me that, because you had a kind of a revelation there, because your face went into sand, and you said, hey, God, if I don't know you, so tell me that.
Well, we took transport from Sandy until Japan. We got off of them, went on a smaller craft, an LSI, and that's landing craft infantry with 6 amphibious tractors down below. The Japanese call them alligators with wheels. Those were each vessel. 3 divisions. 3rd Division held back for about 3-4 days. We got hit so hard, they brought them in. Well, so there we are. We're having chow. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. What do you think they gave us? Ham and eggs. Now, we've always had eggs, cold storage eggs. But ham, the Marine Corps never bought us a ham breakfast. And I said to a kid next to me, I said, hey, buddy, what's with the steak and ham? I mean, the eggs and ham. He said, Graves, use your head. What do they feed convicts before they execute them? Steak. Now that's the kind of humor we had, not knowing what we were in for. That's a good thing. And well, the Commodore dropped his flag. We took off and waved. 1, 2, 3. Just like that, clear down the bay, as far as we could get in.
On February 19th.
Huh?
February 19th.
February 19th, 8 o'clock in the morning.
And you were first wave or third wave?
I was in third wave.
Third wave, that's right.
Yeah, the first and second wave were on the beach. You couldn't get off. They couldn't move. Every time they get up, they get hit. It was terrible. We crawled over dead bodies.
And you said when you hit that beach and your face went into the ground,
I could feel it right like that. I was every one of them, we sucked ourselves right down in that dirt. And here's the bad thing. From here to that trash can was John Bass alone. Medal of Honor, Guadalcanal. On a bond tour. Said to Chesty Puller, his captain at that time, was the captain commander. He said, sir, he says, I want to go be with my buddies. I can't handle this. He said, John, we're making money. He said, I really want to go back with my buddy. He says, I can't say no. You're a Medal of Honor. Go. And he trained with us. One of the first ones we heard got hit.
And was he on first or second wave or third?
That was in the third wave.
He was with you then? Okay.
That was the third wave.
You didn't
But you see, we couldn't move. We couldn't.
You didn't see him go down or anything?
No, we were all down. We were on our bellies.
Right.
I had a flamethrower, and I'm sucking to the ground.
At that time, you had a revelation, too, about God, because what was the quote?
You know, we were depression kids. We didn't have any decent clothes. That's why I'd skip school a lot. I did, I'll admit it. I didn't want to be there. My mother, she'd spit and press, get the dirt off. It was a shame. We didn't have any money. What food we had was the big brick of cheese. Vita! Bill Vita! We were just ashamed, and so, but here we are now. I said, Lord, I'm scared to death. If you could get me off this island, I will serve you the rest of my life. God here is better than what my intentions were. I was sincere as I possibly could. I'm sure the Lord was saying, all right, okay. Yeah, we'll see.
And
that was my experience on the beach.
And you also said, too, that thank goodness for the bomb craters that were created by the Air Force and Navy, that it was convenient for you to have a built-in foxhole temporarily.
You know, after we left Hill 362A, we were discoordinated. I mean, we chose buddies, and we fought together. We didn't have commanders. It's amazing what we did, but that's where training comes in. Thank God for training. And we went to the rest of that island, 3/4 of it. Every night they'd come at us, 200 or 300. We'd kill a couple hundred of them. It was terrible. And every now and then we'd find women, their wives. See, they got caught on that island. They sent no planes if you ever see the movie, Letters from Iwo, the general was there. He said, why are these children and women here? He says, sir, we can't get them off. We have no planes. Well, we've got a call. They won't listen to us. That's in there. And he was really disgusted. They have no place here. Well, we saw the women. They were women in military. They fought right along with their men. Wow. And we found stuff in the caves that I don't even want to mention.
And so it took you 3 days, you mentioned in one of the articles, 540 feet to get to the base of Suribachi. It took you 3 days.
545 feet there. It took us the third day to get there. My skipper got it. Behind a flat rock, he had a cigarette going. He's like this, he's blood all over him. He got hit bad. I said, Skipper, you're going down the beach. Get the so-and-so out of here. Get out of here. He was a raider. Get out of here. And I said, sir, you're going down the beach. I like that. I tell the captain what I'm going to do. You know, I couldn't do anything about it. We talked about that about 45 years later. Yeah, I should have put you in the doggone brig. You know, when we got closer to the north, I will take this to my grave. I tell it every time I go out and speak, because I was one of the greatest generations. There are 3 of us. We have nobody. We joined together. That's the way it happened. I got on the walkie-talkie. I had watched for snipers. I was up there 15 minutes on the ground like this. Dropped back down and I reported the company CP. Negative, no snipers. Nothing's going on out there. Well, you better look again because our first sergeant got one in his leg. They know where we're at. I said 10-4. "You got a replacement coming. We're sending them over to you." I said, "Good deal. We can use them." So I said, "Well, I guess I got to get up there." And then all of a sudden this kid comes. And he said, "Who's Graves?" I said, "I am." He said, "I'm your replacement." I jumped down here, and he jumped down. He said, "What do you want me to do?" I got two buddies with me. I said, "Go over there and sit. There'll be a lot to do tonight." He went over there, and he said, "Grace, let me have the glasses. I'll look." I said, "No, you get yourself shot." My two buddies says, "He's here to do it. Give him the glasses." I threw him the glasses. He got up there. Now I'm shooting the breeze with my buddies. He's busy looking. He fell backwards. The bullet went through his head. His helmet flew up and down between my feet. He was right there. We were shocked. We didn't expect. That sniper knew I'd be back. And that kid took my place. And I looked at the helmet, and I saw something inside in the webbing, a picture of a beautiful woman in a chair with a baby in her lap. I lost it. I took everything off. I cursed the Marine Corps. I cursed God, having let that kid take my place. I didn't understand. 9 years later, May the 9th, 1954, I went to a fishing trip. I was about losing my wife. It was all my fault. I came home, I threw myself on the couch, didn't get any fish, but we caught a lot of bottle bass. The phone rang. My wife was doing housework. She came and got me. "Mr. Bieler wants to talk to you." Now, he was a gentleman from Copenhagen, Denmark, Christian man, always worked with me. I didn't pay much attention. I went over and I said, "Peter Bieler." He said, "Donald, I don't want you to say one word." He was 80 years old, and I respected him. I said, "Yes, sir." "You are losing your wife. You've been losing your best friends, and you're going to lose yourself, and you can't help yourself. Not the way you are right now." I didn't say one word. He was right. "Would you take my wife and I to Belly Graham meeting tonight along Lake Winnebago to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, to a big auditorium by way of film?" Someone remembered what I said on the beach. I'll tell you, it was something. To the theater, and my friends knew me. "Hey, comes Graves is here. Let's pray for him. He needs it." I know I was there. I could hear him talking about me. We sat in the front row, my wife next to me, and the couple behind me. Billy came on. "You were not your own, you bought with a price. And that price was Jesus Christ on Calvary. What are you going to do with Christ in your life? You know you're terrible. You know you're dying. You're killing yourself. You're ruining yourself. You're messing your life up, and you can't do anything about it. And your only hope is to know Christ. You come tonight." Well, later on, the film closed down, and they had an altar call. And they sang that beautiful song, "Just as I am without one plea, that Christ died for me." I heard that song. I got up, and someone said, "I wasn't imagining it. I can only tell you I heard a voice. Sit down, you fool. What about your wife?" I said, "This isn't going to work. It's not going to work." I turned around like that to my wife. She looked at me, and she got up, grabbed my hand. She said, "Let's both go up." We walked up and received Christ. We had the peace of God ever since. He put me in the ministry 29 years I pastored 5 churches, and I can go to every one and preach that Sunday.
Wow.
I loved it. 82 years old, I had my last church. I couldn't handle these kids anymore. I couldn't handle them. They're wild.
So let's get back now. You're at the base of Suribachi, and now, this incident, did it happen up on Mount Suribachi or below? You had a grenade war going up to Suribachi,
Yes,
you
we
said.
did. That's another 500 and some feet going up. Well, you know, carrying a flamethrower, that's not easy, but you do it. Gosh, we were in good shape. We really were. I don't know how I did it. It was God's help. We fought our way up. We saw grenades go by. I hope it didn't go off then. We couldn't throw. They'd roll back at us. We just had to keep going and fire, and they'd drop over on us. I mean, it was terrible. We made it to the top, and when we hit the crest, my gosh, there goes the flag. I said, look. And all of a sudden, out in the bay, 520 ships. You'd have thought it was 4th of July in the New York Harbor.
Now, was this was the second flag that went up, right?
That's
the big one.
First flag.
Oh, you saw the first
yes,
one too?
And that was up for a while. Then all of a sudden it got political. And
You saw the first
I
one?
saw the first race. We had to watch what we were doing. We saw that and we turned and we watched and kept guard over Mount Suribachi while they were operating.
So the first flag, I've read.
And I want to know where that flag is.
Yeah, I think it might be at Quantico, maybe.
Where?
Maybe at Quantico. Yeah.
I don't know.
So the first flagpole was a drain pipe.
Well, that pipe is drain pipe.
Right.
Yeah, I tell people, whenever you see that flag, that's drain pipe.
So you saw the first one, but what about the second one?
I didn't. We couldn't watch. We didn't pay any attention.
So
we never knew there was going to be another one. We turned around.
Yeah.
We didn't pay any attention to it. It was done, and that's it.
So you mentioned in one of the articles that you were in the group picture. Was that for the first one? After?
But listen. 3 flags. There was a small flag stuck in there, and he's the guy that wrote the book on Iwo Jima. What? I'm trying to think of his name. Lockyer. Lockyer? He was the one that had all the paperwork and was writing. That's him. He put a flag small, and they threw it out at him. They picked it, threw it, and ran back in the cave. Then Lieutenant Shrell came up with about 6, 8 guys up around the left. And I'll tell you how that all happened. Give it to you right off first class. Chandler Johnson, our colonel, our battalion colonel, was aboard ship. And the skipper, as he left, said, Skipper, he said, Colonel, he said, take this flag, please. See if you can do it. He says, I'll be glad to. He had it in his blouse here. Lieutenant Schrey, he called Schrey over and said, now look, we're at the base. We got the side pretty well secure. Work up around the left if you can, because they're coming up from that side. And he said, see if you can put this flag up for the skipper aboard ship. Now that's the God's truth. And he said, all right, sir. He grabbed about 6 guys, 7 guys, and they prayed it up to him. They had a little skirmish, they killed him, and they put the flag up. But that's how that flag happened. People don't know that.
And you were there you're probably one of the few left that saw it.
Some our greatest generation.
Now tell me the story about the Japanese soldier who came out in full uniform out of a pillbox with his rifle and his sword, and then went back in, and then came out and did himself in. Now was that...
You're talking about the guy who ran across the front of me, dove in a hole.
Now was he after you got up on Mount Suribachi?
No, we were at the base, coming to the base when that happened.
So tell me about that pillbox story.
Yeah.
There. So,
well, we were moving right toward after I left the captain. We moved towards the base, and I didn't have anybody. And a kid yelled, hey, Graves, hold up. So it was Johnny Arview. He come running over towards me and says, I'll go with you. You haven't got anybody with us. No, I need help. He said, I'll go with you. So we start moving, maybe another 20, 25 feet. This Japanese come up from the bottom of the base and ran across, dove down in a hole. And I said, there he goes. He said, I'll drop a few grenades in. No, 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 wait a minute. Look. One thing we were told aboard ship in orientation, if you can get a prisoner, get him. We don't know what's going on this island. We don't know. So we've got to have, and they'll talk. Once they surrender, they've lost their country. That's it, they're done. So anyway, he ran, and I said, wait a minute. Detekoi, come. Kohano Shaki, flamethrower. Nothing. I yelled again. I said, okay, let's advance. So we moved out. He had a beautiful uniform on with a beautiful sword. I saw that sword and a plume hat. I said, Detekoi, Kohano Shaki. He had his one hand on his chest and his hand on his sword. Boom! Nothing was left. Didn't get the sword either. So we went on from there. That's the first encounter I had that close with the enemy. Yeah.
Wow.
But he knew that he was done. He was going to commit suicide. That's what he did. He wasn't going to surrender.
So then we just said that it was a grenade war, basically getting up to the 500 feet to Mount Surbachi.
Yes.
Then you saw the raising of that first flag. And then tell me what transpired after that as you moved north.
Well, I see. Once everything, they let up. Horn blown, everything all over. Our boys on the north, going towards the north, they opened up with tracers in the air, you know. Oh, it was a spectacle. Then it calmed down, and that's it. Now, politics is starting to form. We didn't pay any attention. We sat there, we had rifles, and we're waiting for them to come out around the back up to the front, but they didn't. They were done. That was the end of Suribachi.
That was 26 days.
Yep.
Did they have one last bonsai
Yes,
attack?
they did.
Tell me about that.
Yes, they did. That was, oh, it's funny. It's not funny. He never hated me for it either. I felt so bad. But you know, when we left Three Hills, 362, we didn't have any commanders. I mean, we went to Chandler Johnson, our boss. Colonel, we have no officers. There's not too many of us left here. He said, can you make it to the base? See, they took over in the base. Can you get over here at the base of the mountain? I says, yes, sir, I think we can. He said, get over here, all of you. We went in there, just huddled down. The Japs came in the back and threw everything at us. Why we didn't get hit or killed, I have no idea. One came around the corner screaming. I had a 45. Bang, bang, bang. And he started moaning and crying. I got up with my pistol and I walked to kill him. It's my buddy. His name is False. I hit him. I took his nipple off. I took the tip of his breast off with a 45, and he was laying there. What are you doing? He said, I was heading out that way, and I saw the Japs come, and I started running. And they thought I was them, I guess, because they didn't do anything to me. And then I got hit. I said, yes, your buddy did it. I'm him.
So friendly fire. So did he survive? Did he survive?
He survived. I don't know where he went, but he didn't come back with us. They let him go. His body's been damaged. They let him go.
Right.
Gave him the Purple Heart and let him go.
So again, that was just something that happened.
Grace of God.
Yeah,
Grace of
that he
God.
wasn't. Any more observations about that last bonsai attack?
Yeah, the last bonsai charge. That's where they used the women and everything. They really came, and they came with flares on. We saw them coming.
And this was at night or during the day?
Huh?
Was it at night?
This is at nighttime.
Yeah.
They'll come about 2 o'clock in the morning when it's hard for us to stay awake. And we did not, when we got out of the landing crafts, we got up the nets. We had to crawl up the nets while the Navy boys would be up to help pull us over aboard. We'd hit the deck. We'd get up and they look Graves, you made it. What's wrong with your eyes? I said, I don't know, why? He said, they're fire red. I said, we haven't had any sleep. He said, no sleep? I said, no, you can't sleep in combat, you're dead. It was really something. Oh my gosh. They interrogated us. How were you able to wash? I said, we never washed. 6 weeks. Well, what about your teeth? We never used our teeth. Cleaned our teeth. We couldn't do it.
And you had K rations, right?
We drank.
Yeah.
We had to drink that water. And it was full of alcohol. It had alcohol.
And which was, what kind of water was it?
They processed our water from the ocean.
Oh, the Japanese did.
The Japanese couldn't do that. We processed our water, but you could taste the alcohol. Yeah, you could taste it, but it worked.
And you just had nothing but
K rations. Yeah. And the only thing I took off was the D bar, the chocolate bar. Boy, did we have fun with that one. Here's the story, true story. We're sitting in a hole, and I said, "You guys got a D bar on you?" "Yeah." "Let's chip them. I'll dice them all up. I'll make hot chocolate." "Okay, let's do it." So I chopped them up. I put it in my liner, helmet liner. I poured water in it. Put the fire, demolition, burns beautiful. Has to be ignited to explode, you know. So it's just going good. We're sitting there, we're shooting the breeze. But I forgot that the air carries chocolate pretty easy, because I said, it's starting to smell good. Then all of a sudden, "Hey, Marine, very good chocolatito. You bring chocolatito here." I said, "If you want chocolate, you come and get it." "Oh, no, you bring here." The guys, my buddies on the line, were laughing their heads off. They said, "Grace, you're crazy. You're nuts." There's fun in combat, and there's also sadness and fear. It all hits.
Any other close calls that you had?
Yes, I did. I had nobody with me. We were down. We got pretty low. I couldn't get anybody. What am I going to do with I can't. It's loaded, for crying out loud. I can't. You can't. That's court-martial. That stays on your body until it's empty, and even then, you bury it if you have to. So we're moving along, and a kid comes along, Bob Mueller. I'll never forget it. He's been on the internet. He's dead now. Bob Mueller said, "Graves, I'll tell you what, I'll go with you." I said, "Wait a minute. It's open. Look at those caves." He said, "Well, let's watch it, you know." So as we entered, this is clear, but there's like a bank right here. I couldn't see over the bank, but Bob was over there next to him. And as we came through, he goes bang, bang, and kills 2 Japanese. They were running from me. They didn't see him. And I said, "My gosh," and I turned and fell. That would have happened without him. I turned and fell. I can't see, when you fall, you can't get up. You cannot get up. That's a lot of weight. So he helped me get up, and we stayed together until it was the end. Yeah.
Now, there's one story that was written in here, and you explained it really well, is that when you're ready to march out from Iwo Jima, all of a large number went to the cemetery. And that story, when I read it, brought a tear to my eye. So please tell me explain that again.
You know, it's terrible to say a cemetery is beautiful, but we had 3 cemeteries. Do you have a picture of it?
I've seen it, yeah. I don't have it currently, but yeah.
I have a picture of Mount Suribachi, Marines in heaven, in the clouds, Mount Suribachi, and the 5th Marine Division Cemetery. The gate is here. 18 of us were released out of 300 at the end of the 6th week. We got up, the 3rd Division released us. That's the way they were operating. and we marched on down to the gate of that cemetery, and our regimental commander met us. Harry the Horse Liversedge, First World War battle, loaded with medals. Great Marine. He says, fellas, and I want you to say goodbye to your officers and your buddies and come out, form a line again. We'll go aboard ship and go back to Hawaii, and we'll get ready for Japan. They hadn't surrendered yet. Germany surrendered. We lined up. As we went through that gate, there's a piece of paper, 8.5 by 11, tacked on the left arch. And every Marine read that, and I came to it, and this is what I read. Fellas, when you go home, tell the folks we did our best, that they may have many more tomorrows. I tell you, that break you down. I had 3 buddies I went to school with. We walked out of school, all 3 of us. We went to war.
And you lost all 3 of them.
And now I talk to high school boys. And some of them will say to me, Mr. Graves, how could you give up learning, and what would you have? I said, let me tell you something. If you go to Pearl Harbor and you look at the Arizona turned upside down in the water with 3,500 Navy and Marines, they couldn't get them out, and they're still there, and we don't know what they look like. What do you think they told their loved ones? They couldn't sleep. That was horrible.
And that cemetery that you walked out of, in what I read, what was do you remember the name of that particular cemetery? It's one of 3.
5th Division.
5th Division.
It was a 5th Division cemetery.
5th Division cemetery.
And I'm sure they all 3 were like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we move on, as you coming stateside, any other thoughts on Iwo Jima that you want to add at all? Any more thoughts? I think we covered.
Say it again.
Do you have any more thoughts on Iwo Jima before we move to stateside?
I think we pretty well covered the initial battle. And then, yes, other than that, why, it's just a matter of experiences, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you came home.
We went back to Pearl, and boy, we went 7 knots. Can you imagine all those ships going like, submarines would have had a harvest, but they weren't there because we whipped them.
Right.
We broke the Navy back at Midway.
So when you arrived at Pearl Harbor, did you have some liberty for a while, or?
We got back to Pearl. We went out to our initial camp, Camp Pendleton, and we had 2 weeks, nothing doing. Do what you want to do. Sleep in.
Because the Japanese had not surrendered either. And the Japanese had not surrendered at that time either.
Yeah, I mean, the Japanese were still on Okinawa. Yeah, that was the end of it.
Yeah.
Here's something that was sad. On the last day, we were released. And we got aboard our transport. And as we were taking off, all hands, now hear this. The old man is dead. We said, the old man? President Roosevelt died at Little Rock, Arkansas, with a cerebral hemorrhage. Harry Truman will take over his position. We didn't know who Harry Truman was. Roosevelt never used him much, you know. And one kid said, nah, he'll be all right. He's a mule skinner. We laughed at that, mule skinner.
Yeah.
And so then that was what we heard about the old man, and we felt bad. We had tears in our eyes. You know, did I tell you that if I get there to the Roosevelt room, I'm going to ask Trump if I can go in there and say that Roosevelt speech. I want to do that.
That would be epic.
It would be wonderful.
Absolutely epic, yeah. And you know how you don't know if you know this story or not, but prior to that speech, they were trying to figure out whether a presidential limousine would take him there. And I kind of figured, well, what's the deal? And so the Secret Service had impounded Al Capone's black Cadillac.
Yeah.
So they had 24 hours to fit that to the president. Well, the deal was that they needed more security. So when he went to deliver that speech, leaving in the morning from the White House, there were 3 Secret Service with Tommy guns on one of the running boards, 3 on the right side, and 4 with shotguns inside so that's why they needed a bigger limousine.
I'll be darned.
So that story is hardly ever told.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, then he
Yeah.
gave his famous speech, which probably is one of the most iconic speeches you'll ever hear. Yeah. So,
Have you ever heard of St. Mark's School?
no.
It's a all boys school, all boys school. Those young men, when they graduate, are ready to go to work or wherever. I have a great time with them, and the teacher tells me I've been there 3 years. Parents come and sit in the back. Tell them like it is. He punches. I said, okay, and boy, we have a time. Yeah.
Wow.
I call them young people.
We covered your conversion via Billy Graham, and you talked a lot about that. You know, another person who was affected by Billy Graham, who wrote a book, and there was a movie about him, was Louis Zamperini, and it was called Unbroken.
I know, yes. And we both walked to the front and fell down.
That's right.
My daughter saw the movie and she said, Dad, you did almost the same thing.
Exactly.
I'll tell you, when you do that, you're empty. You got nothing. Where are you going to go?
Well, guess what? I interviewed Louis as well.
You did?
Yep. And
I'll be danged.
he went to my alma mater.
That Jap hated him because he beat him in the races.
Exactly. Yeah. But for 47 days on the Pacific, as you know.
On the Pacific with sharks all over the doggone place.
And hardly any food.
And they had to throw some of their buddies over.
Yeah. And then to go through those Japanese prisons.
Oh, my gosh. I saw the movie.
You know, I asked him, I said, when you were...
Then they showed him at the end of the movie talking that.
Yeah. And when he was at Ofuna, the prison, I asked him, I said, Louis, was Pappy Boynton one of your cellmates? Or he says, yeah, he was in the cell next door to me. And Pappy, of course, was a great Marine.
Oh, my gosh.
How about that?
Oh, yeah.
So there's a similarity between you and Louis Zamperini. So
Remember Billy Graham, though? That's
Yeah.
That's his grandson. Just like, didn't look like, but he sounded just like him. Remember when Louis got up and turned to leave? He said, don't go, stay. And he turned around and walked back and fell down on the floor. That's almost the same thing I did.
And his wife was very instrumental
Oh, my gosh,
to
yes.
getting him to come.
Yes, yes.
Did you ever meet him at all?
Huh?
Did you ever meet Louis?
No, I never did,
yeah.
no. But I'll tell you whose dad did somewhat of that, and that's our senator from Cuba. Senator.
Oh, Rubio.
Yes.
Yes.
His dad was a drunk. And he practically did the same thing. He had a battle, and Christ intervened. We talked, he and I talked. I told him my testimony. He said, my gosh, is it possible two go through the same? I says, a heck of a lot more than that, my friend.
What ironic that, you know, Billy, I mean, yourself and Louis would be with Billy
I
Graham.
know.
That's amazing.
I know.
So I think I've covered all the questions, unless you can think of anything else, but
No, there's one thing I would like to do on your podcast.
Yeah.
I would like to say, God bless America.
And then I have one more to say this, is that what did the United States Marine Corps do for you, and how did that influence you the rest of your life?
I went out there last year. I'm going again in a few weeks. Graduation. My buddy's daughter, his son is graduating. The camp general and I talked. He said, Don, he said, I'm so happy to talk to one of the old corps. I said, General, don't say that, because all I ever heard was the old corps. Now you're telling me that. And my dad heard the same thing in the First World War. Now back in the old Corps.
Yeah.
All right. What? I have two things I sing. God Bless America and the National Anthem. Now, I love the National Anthem, and I do sing it. But I have to tell you, it's so emotional, and it's so mechanical, I'm beginning to forget. So what I do, I take that with me. And I find that even though I have it, I keep going. But I have the assurance I can be helped. That happens. But on God Bless America, I close my eyes, go to sleep, and sing it. You know who made that famous? Huh?
Irving Berlin. Or Margaret.
Irving Berlin wrote it.
Kate Smith.
Yep.
Kate Smith.
Irving wrote it for Kate Smith. I saw that. I heard her and I saw that. And have you heard her?
Oh, yeah.
Just get on the internet and go, just put Kate Smith.
She's incredible.
Here she comes.
She's incredible.
I tell everybody, and people say, Don, you're right. She really bellows that song out.
Nobody did it like her.
200-pound lady. She really was a great American.
She was.
But Irving and her were good friends. I tell the story. Irving, the American people are ready for a second national anthem. He says, I'll go home and see what I can do. He went through his stuff, and he evidently had tried something, and he found it and finished it, brought it back to her. She did it as grand opening on her radio show. I'm at the VFW, and I'm telling that story. They see, she was that good? I said, more so.
That's right.
On that radio over there. They plugged it in, put her on. Man, she bellowed that. Everybody is like this. And tears in their eyes. I said, there is a good lady right there. She sang that song, and everybody had goosebumps. Oh, yeah.
Did you?
I guess that's I'm going to be singing God Bless America. All right? That lady over there in the chair, she's heard it and heard it and heard it. I'm going to sing it again.
All right, here we go. Go for it.
Yeah. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above, from the mountain to the ocean, white before. God bless America, sweet home. God bless America, our home, sweet home.
Bravo. Semper Fi. That's
Hey,
fantastic.
Mary, I just got a bravo. Hey, we have more fun doing this.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well,
There were 3 guys that did a video, and I testified. Yeah, we're singing. The guy in the middle got up like this. He walked away. He came and sat back down. He said, dang it off. I wish you hadn't done that.
well, Don, I want to tell you, this was an incredible interview, and I really appreciated this time with you.
Well,
and I want to thank you for your
It's all
service.
the truth, and it's dramatized, but I can't help it. I'm that kind of a guy.
And that's what the memory should be.
I've been a performer all my life, and I try not to be. What'd she say?
I don't know, it was that look.
Hey, Mary,
I'm just listening.
Yeah.
What?
She said she's just listening, that's all. But anyway, thank you again, and God bless your service for our country, and a great 100th birthday coming
We're
up.
on the way. It's going to be tough. We got to pray for you. You got to give him strength.
Yep.
I'm telling you, the battle's starting. Bunch of hoodlums Can you imagine my relatives and all the people in Detroit, Michigan, were of the greatest generation, could see and hear what's happening now from their party? They'd throw it away and start all over.
Yep. Yeah.
They're gangsters.
Yeah. You know what I gave a talk recently on Wreaths Across America, and that's a ceremony in December, second Saturday of every December, where you put wreaths on the graves of veterans. Yeah. And it's a volunteer, 4,000 cemeteries. So I was asked to give a speech at a local cemetery where I live. And so
that's always tough.
So the title was Greatest Generation, Greatest Inspiration. And I gave an example of 3 veterans who I've interviewed like you. One was a Tuskegee Airman. One was an airman who'd been shot down and captured and escaped 3 times from Nazi prisons. And the 4th one was the last survivor off the USS Arizona who was alive, was Lou Contour.
My gosh.
So
tell her that.
So those 3 were just knockouts. So then I finished by talking about what they taught me. And I said the following. I said, I was trained by the greatest generation, and I continue to learn from the greatest generation. Yeah. And then I finished it with one of my vets said, Gary, there are 4 factors why I've been able to live beyond 100. And the first one is gratitude. The second one is fortitude. The third one is attitude. And the last one is tolerance. There you go.
There's a speech right there.
I nailed it. So anyway.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, thanks again, Don. And now we're going to take a couple pictures now.
You know, it just amazes me how you can chop that up, put that together.